Excellent, thank you. So, CNHP, the Colorado Natural Heritage Program, is where I originally got my training for this project, and we use ArcGIS's product called Survey 123 in the field. And that is a highly technical product with limited seat licenses and just a level of complexity that is not so geared to volunteer assistance. So I thought, I use iNaturalist all the time, so do a lot of my friends and the volunteers and members of CoNPS and WRV. Why don't we make a volunteer-facing project to collect observations this way? And so here we are. If you have not already done so, I'm going to show you the two ways that you can join, which is on the desktop or via the mobile app. So this little link right here, it should be clickable even in this view, and it'll pop out and you will see a little very insignificant tiny print at the top right, and you would click on join this project if you are logged into your iNaturalist account. And all of these links and slides, etc., and this recording will be included at the conclusion of this meeting, so you don't have to scurry around and try and write everything down. Everything will be sent to you. So this is on the desktop application. If you wanted to join via mobile, be logged in, first of all, and then go to the little hamburger symbol at the top of your profile, and that will give you this drop-down menu. The second selection is projects. Click in and search for CoNPS R2 or any combination, NPM seed scouting. Search for that, and this should be the only one that comes up because it's fairly specific in its naming. And then you just select this join button here. Now, unfortunately, we did try to test sharing directly from mobile before we started this meeting. That doesn't seem to be working, so we will be limited to these screenshots. We will be able to do some sharing of the desktop app, and we'll probably do that later. But just do your best to follow along, and we'll get you started. So this project, the Region 2 Native Plant Materials Program, has a select set of target species that we're looking for. The asterisk is a big asterisk, and that is related to the fact that year over year we edit and review these species that are going to be harvested, and these are still in discussion because we, just inside baseball issues that you don't need to worry about. That being said, you can always find this list by clicking that link at the top. We are also developing a printed field guide that will help people to identify these plants in the field. It will feature lookalike plants, locations, maps, periods of bloom, and seed readiness. And that is going to be a little more user-friendly and portable than, say, Ackerfield or Shaw or your preferred flora of choice. There's a difference between target species and opportunistic species. The opportunistics are plants that we would only really harvest if we were already observing them with our main target species. So these are less of a priority, but they're still sought after by the Forest Service in their restoration projects. So we will still harvest them. It's just less of a concern. So as you can see, you can find these lists both in mobile and on desktop with these links. And when you go and look at the project list, it will tell you Is it opportunistic? Is it a target species? And these are the ecoregions where we're looking for them for. Now, ecoregions is a concept that if you're not familiar with, you really don't need to concern yourself with too much. These are more internal notes for us for the curators to assist with refining the submitted observations. So let's get straight to it and review what it might look like to find observations on mobile. Here we have some screenshots. It is important that when you are scouting on mobile, that you input your location first. I don't know why it is the way it is, but if you put in the species first and don't fill this in, it's only going to like select to like your immediate area. So like for me, I live in Wheat Ridge. It's only going to show me like the Metro Denver area. So first of all, put in your location. And then, referring back to that list of target species, let's say you really like the Asteraceae. So you're going to put in Liatris punctata. Its common name is dotted gayfeather. And then we see here this statewide selection of where you can find them. And at the bottom of your mobile view, there's a grid view or a map view. And you really want to look at the map view because we are only concerned with observations occurring on the U.S. Forest Service lands. If it's in your backyard or if it's at a mountain park, open space, we can't, like our permit does not allow us to collect from those locations. It can only be from the national forest or national grassland. And in order to kind of drill down from the map view, you just take two fingers and you just kind of zoom in. And on this observation, I've found you kind of get a sense after doing this for a while, like where the national forest locations are. And I'll show you, like, there's definitely ways that you can kind of more specifically target locations. And we'll get to that, but just from first principles, you're just going about your observations. You drill down. Yes.
Quick question about location in the mobile app. If you're in the
Yes.
project in the mobile app, where do you select location?
So, like from here?
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is you don't have to be inside the project to be searching. You can just go
No.
explore. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, you just explore. You don't need to be in the project at any point if you're just going from explore. And is it not sharing my screen?
It is.
It is? Okay. Yeah, I'm not able to share directly from mobile, unfortunately. We tried to test that out, so we're stuck with the screen grabs at this time.
But I am not seeing your screen actually.
You're not?
Yeah, are other people? I'm just curious. Maybe it's my
Oh,
problem.
no.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
the best way that I have found to see the presenter and the chat screen is if you go up on the top right of your Zoom screen and there is a little white menu that says view. If you click on view and you go to standard view, I find that's the best way to view the presentation.
What if you unpin me from the view? Is that maybe part of the problem?
Oh no, I actually got it. I'm sorry. That's never
Oh,
happened
okay.
before. I have two tabs at the top of my Zoom, and
Oh,
your face was one tab and your screen was the other. So my apologies.
oh, that's okay. Um, all right. Has anybody else like need a refresher now that we've got the views good? Okay.
This is Annette. I'm not seeing where you got from explore to location.
Okay. So when you're in your mobile, um, you click on yourself basically, and it should show you this drop down view with Explore at the top.
And this is from outside of the project?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay,
This is
maybe
just
that's what it was.
regular Explore. Yeah. You don't need to be in the project to do the exploration.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. I'm sorry if that was not apparent.
No, I think you said that. I just
Okay.
was.
I also forget how things are when I am a beginner. And I am also using an Android phone rather than an Apple. So that may also impact the view. Um, so, okay. If you're unable to view the location, um, if it shows you the grid and you click on the map, that should show you the list, like just the view of the broad overview of where you are. We'll also go into this on the desktop, and it is a bit easier to do on the desktop, but I kind of wanted to just drill down a little bit into the mobile to begin with.
And you
Okay.
may have to hover over the bottom of your screen to get that map versus grid view icon to show up like it is um, above Melly's third picture here.
Yeah.
On the bottom, you can see the green and the white toggle. That may help.
I I feel completely and utterly confused. Am I supposed to be in the project and going to explore and finding the map? Um,
Oh, no, you
because
don't. Yeah.
because when I go explore and then I'm in the map, I get the regular iNaturalist map, which is basically like a bazillion, jillion red dots.
Right. Okay. Let me do a live demo where we can, let's
Um,
hopefully,
can I interrupt for a sec?
yes, go ahead.
Okay, folks, I just looked on my phone. See on the right panel, there's this little grid or the map, and that's the toggle. So when you first open it, it opens to the grid. So if you're not seeing the map, try toggling to those vertical wave lines right above the word MAP in the slide.
Yeah, and KK and everybody else, I had the same problem the first time I did this with the restoration committee. You don't even be in the project. Just go you we just wanted everyone to join the project so that you could then add observations you find to the project. The easiest thing is just to back out, go to explore, type in your plant, choose your location, and then you should be able to get to Melly's screen.
And also, if people are uh, struggling, we can definitely hold time at the end and do some one-on-one walkthrough. Um, and yeah, this is the second time. Well, this is the first time that I've presented this outside of the restoration committee. So please bear with us as we learn how to be the best trainers that we can be. Um, I do apologize that we're not meeting that goal at this time for everybody, but we will hopefully get everybody on board. Um, so let's get back to here. Okay, so I think I'm going to just move on. And if people are able to follow along um, with me from this point, that's great. We will also do a little reset and do desktop searching next. And that should be a little bit easier to follow along with. And I will be able to do a live demonstration. And you can stop me and ask me questions while I'm doing that. So if you're able to follow me from this point, we're in the mobile view and we're going to drill down from that broader position and kind of zoom in on a little location, and you can see that it says Pike San Isabel National Forest here. And if you click on one of the little red squares, each red square is one observation. And you can see, like, as you click into the observation, it'll show you this view, it'll show you the map of where it is. You can favorite it. At this time, you cannot add directly to projects from mobile, but there is a workaround. You would simply star it in that star tab to favorite it. And after starring it, you can make phenology annotations like, is it flowering? Are there seeds? That is not required for the project, but it is helpful. And the workaround is, once you've made a few favorites and you want to go back to your desktop application, you can find your favorites using this URL naming convention. It's /faves/ your own username. And then you would click on this observation in your favorites, and then you would type in, because we've added ourselves to the project, it's going to be, it'll pop up as an option. If you start to type in, CoNPS, it will be there. Or you don't actually need to type it in. If you're in a member of a project, it will show you the projects that you're a member of, such as I'm also a member of the State Parks Nature Finder, and I could add it to that, but I'm adding it to this one. And at the bottom, you can see here that it has added to the project. And what will happen if you try to add a non-target species is that it will say, well, sorry, it's not on the list. You can't add it. And that shouldn't happen. If that does happen, and it's because we've edited that target species list, that may happen because that is still in flux, but that should be a rare occurrence. Live demo did not happen, but I will pause for questions.
So Melly, it sounds like, because I'm an iNaturalist dummy, so I'm going to try and see if I can summarize what you said. So if we're in the mobile app and we have looked for Liatris punctata, we found a great one. I'm in the northern region, so I usually look there because I can tell where the national forests are. And I say, oh, great, this is a confirmed national forest location. After I've chosen Colorado, I can then add that to my favorites in the mobile app. And then when I sign into the desktop, I can find my favorites and then add them to the project there.
Correct.
Okay.
100% correct. Yes, you've got it.
Okay.
Yeah. And as we said before, all of these slides will be available for people to study afterwards and follow along with. But no, that's a very good question. So moving on from mobile for the exploring part, this is kind of a two-sided training. So first, we're going to start with exploring and curating observations made by other people. Later in the presentation, I will talk more about how you can make your own observations and submit those. But this portion is, we're still exploring just the explore part, not from within the project, but just the basic interface that iNaturalist gives you when you hit explore from the main page. So similarly, We are searching for Liatris punctata in Colorado. And remembering to put in the location first because of the way that iNaturalist is. So from that view, this map view, if you drill down and hit one of those, so here you can see it's kind of out here in the White River area, this one specific red dot. You click on that red dot. And I guess I picked a different one because this is on Pawnee, which is not in the middle of the state at all. So, and this is a nice observation. It's research grade. It is surrounded by other similar observations. It will show you in the map view what other observations are nearby of this same species. You can see from the location that it's on Pawnee. And the geoprivacy is open, which is helpful for us. And because we are unable to, so places, we can have a species list in an iNaturalist project, right? That's a limited list of species. Unfortunately, giving the project the place boundary of all of region 2 and those boundaries of those landforms, those KML files, that is too much of a data pressure on the back end for them. So they don't really allow that. So there are workarounds to that, but it does require you to do a few extra steps. So you can search for a species within a specific place of interest, which is a nice way of saying, so if I live in Fort Collins and I'm only interested in scouting or working on observations near the Pawnee, because that's near where I live, you can do that. And you can say, oh, I'm only interested in the penstemons, Penstemon albitus in this case. And this link you can follow out and do some searching based on that. Finding places of interest, you can search for a place using this link here. And unfortunately, not all places of interest are in there. So I've worked on adding some for this project. I've added most of the Pike National Forest, separated into the different ranger districts. All of these links, there will be links to each specific place later on in the presentation as well. So looking at Pawnee National Grassland, this is a space, this is a place of interest that someone else has curated, has created, and you can search all the species observed in that place and drill down to your specific species of interest. So like this white-flowered beard tongue or Penstemon albitus is a Great Plains and High Plains penstemon species. It does really well in dry environments, and that's why it's one of the plants that we look for. And if you click on the species, it will show you all the places that it's been observed in that place of interest, which is very helpful. And clicking in these specific red dots, you will see this individual observation, and it meets the criteria of being a target species. It's on a national grassland. It's research grade. It's near a road. And I've added it to the project, and it can go on a list where another volunteer or maybe myself would go out and look at the size of the population. You can also reach out to the observers and message them and ask them if they remember the size of the population, but that's not a requirement by any means. You can search places of interest by species, such as Bouteloua curtipendula, or I'm sorry, Bouteloua gracilis. Each of these, so if you look at the URL, you'll see place ID, and then the map view. If so each place has a place ID, and each taxon or each species has its own place ID as well. And we'll show you those links, and those keys will be available in the sign-up spreadsheet as well. So I guess we'll talk a little bit about what kinds of ideal photographs you would want to make for graminoid. A lot of the species that we have as our target species are grasses or grass-like, and so we call them graminoid. Being less showy than a wildflower, it helps to take photographs of more minute details, such as the spikelets, the ligules, which are the collar-like divisions at the base of each leaf, and the inflorescence here. But that's kind of a digression. Going back to the species location searching options, sometimes a place will not have a species list, and that's okay, because you can always scroll down to the bottom of the page and hit view more observations from this place, and then you can search your target species, and then it will limit it to that Boulder Ranger District. I will pause for questions before we move on to how to make new observations. All right. Hopefully no one's feeling super lost, and we will revisit and do walkthroughs for people who feel who don't feel like they're able to follow along. And we'll get there. For new observations, we have some ideal site characteristics that we're looking for. Well, obviously has to be a target or opportunistic species. It needs to be on a national forest or a grassland. And every collection must be of at least 50 plants, hopefully many more than that. And it cannot be a recently seeded area. So if it burned last year and has been recently seeded, we don't want to touch that, because we want actual wild populations. Ideally, the location will be accessible from a forestry road or walking distance from a campground. It's nice to have these other features, but not every site that we scout will be visited by a volunteer crew. So sometimes they will be just served by, myself or Curtis at the CNHP. So 50 plants is the minimum collection. So that's correct. That's a good point. It needs to be a lot more than 50 plants, but just for making an initial observation, you don't feel like you have to count the number of plants. Just kind of guesstimate and show us, and the crews and the crew people will determine if it's an appropriate and sustainable collection point. So here is a collection
And
that
Melly, you just might want to say why 50 plants.
Oh yes, why 50 plants? We collect no more than 20% of a given population in order to not over collect. 50 plants is just a number that we were given by CNHP. And making sure that we do not over collect and over stress a population. And the size of the area is, so if it's a meadow or grassland like this, it's based on the National Vegetation Classification. So if you see it jump a road, that's a separate population. If you see it going from a meadow to a riparian area, those are two different populations. So within kind of a discrete area under a kilometer, that's kind of what we're looking for a population, air quotes. But again, that is a bit more advanced thinking than you really need to be undertaking. Just, I mean, really focus on you're kind of just sending us the images that you find. If you happen to already be on the landscape, you're already out camping, you say, oh, that's Liatris punctata, I know that they're looking for that, I will submit this observation. And then we can do the heavy lifting of determining if that is a sufficient population size. So this is a selection that we did last year. It's right by a road. We could use a little turnout parking. It's level terrain. All of the volunteers can see each other. Happy, wonderful time. And as for the ideal characteristics of the observation, we need at least one image. We need open location and give us the date and time. If you omit the date and time, sometimes it will set it automatically to be a casual observation, not research grade. Sometimes it just happens that it will omit that for some reason, and then you'll just have to go back and add that in. That hasn't happened to me for a long time, though, so don't worry about it too much. Ideally, again, you will let us know about the rough population estimate. If you're able to make phenology annotations, that's great too. Please give us a population, like the landscape photo, just so we can see what kind of environment that it's in, an individual plant, and details. And there will be lots of example observations to share. So if you need pointers on how your observation would look and that would make us very happy, you can check these. Each plant family has different things that you need to look for when keying them out. And if you're able to capture those minute details, that's great. But if not, don't worry about it. This is supposed to be fun for y'all. Like I want this to be fun and enjoyable. So don't make this into a job for yourself. That's my job. So have fun with it, one of the ways that I like, yeah, go ahead.
Can we pause just for 1 second?
Yes.
So we had a little bit of like chat conversation about the size of an area. And we do a lot of seed scouting at WRV. A lot of our volunteers do that for us.
Okay.
I know I saw Greg here. He's one of our technical advisors. And really a good way to think about it is it abundant, available, and accessible? And the accessibility piece I think is very important for two reasons to think about. Is it's easy to collect. We've already driven a long way. We want to be able to get the largest quantity of seed that we can without wiping out a population. If there are multiple populations in one area, like Melly was saying, pockets of different populations, that will increase diversity of the population you're getting. And the less time you spend walking off trail and the less deep off trail you are going into untouched landscapes, the less chance you have of continuing to spread non-native seeds into those areas. So that's another key piece. Like if you're thinking about this and you're like, wow, I'm tromping through a field of cheatgrass to get this other grass. Maybe that's not a great collection site because of your impact on spreading the cheatgrass and then also potential contamination. So that's something we look at with the grasses as well. And then Maggie had a really good rule of thumb. If you can see 50 plants when you're standing in one spot, that's a good area for collection. So I thought that was a good pointer that she put in the chat window.
Oh, that's an excellent point. And those are all excellent points. We don't want to be making the landscape less healthy when we're undertaking these noble efforts. So thank you for, and as always, please interrupt me if I'm going too far off the rails and not making sense, because I do have a touch of autism and can get hyper focused. So I am not offended whatsoever if people have questions along the way. So as I was saying, make it fun for yourself. One way that I like to make it fun is, I have these little size and measurement things. I pick a wheat penny because that's on topic, and that's just a cute thing to have in your wallet. And you can pull it out and have it as a size reference for the plant parts that you're photographing. This ingenious person here, she drew a centimeter marker on her thumb. I love it. This is like a wrist ruler bracelet. You can get them on Etsy, and they're great for photographing plants, or knitters use them also for their craft projects. I also have a photo scale. Maggie, I got you one too, for use in photographing collections. And Parks and Wildlife has this handy fish measuring device that you can get at Sportsman's Expo. And you can use a Sacagawea coin, and, just let the people know that you're a cool and interesting person when you're making your observations, and just share that joy. So, getting back to the observation instructions, say I'm on the landscape and I see a grass and I'm like, I know that this grass is on the list. Point of order, Muhlenbergia montana is no longer on our list, so this would not be an observation that I could submit. But let's pretend for the present moment that it's something that's on the target list. I have several photographs of the minute details of this grass. I have notes in the discussion, like the keying. As I was keying it, this has tridentate glooms and fine red stems, the date and time, the exact coordinates, location visibility open, and then you would click add to project. You can actually add your own new observations to a project from mobile. You can't do you can't add other people's observations from mobile. But you can when you create a new observation, and that it will allow you to do that. As you go through your observation, it's very helpful to have this phenology information added, and you can verify that it's in the project by looking here. And do we need to pause for any questions? I heard a lot of dings and dongs.
We had a couple people join. So if you're just joining, I added the project link. So if that's a great one to start with, so that you add that project and join that project in your iNaturalist app. And then this slideshow will be shared, and there is a target species list that Melly is looking for, and you can look for other people's observations and add them to that project, or you can make your own observations and add them to the project as well. And the presentation has reviewed how to do it in the mobile app, which is can be a little trickier. But you can also just add things you find to your favorites in the mobile app and then go on to the desktop app, and it's much easier to add things to a project from there.
Excellent. Thank you. I don't know what I would do without you, Anne Marie and Maggie and everybody helping. Thank you very much. So far, we have already amassed quite a backlog of scouting locations thanks to the efforts in this project. So this is a different app. This is not iNaturalist. This is what I use personally. It's an app called Onyx. And it's something that I pay for. It's a off-roading app and hiking app, and it can show you private property boundaries, things like that. And so I have a special list that I've made, a folder that is just for these. And that's what informs the sign-up sheet that will be shown at the end. So, for example, on the Pawnee, there's these 4 observations all along this road. And
That's how I felt too. I was like, wait a minute.
So I think that person was just having a mute problem. So places of interest, map feature searching. All of these places have place IDs that you can click and search those target species. Here, and you can go back and you save this slide and you go and click that and make it a bookmark. And then you can go and search from there on your desktop. There isn't really a good way to do this on mobile, unfortunately. So if you're searching with the taxon and place ID codes, that's a really efficient way of doing it. If you know you're only interested in this one location and you're only interested in looking for a certain species, there's these place IDs and taxon IDs, and you just mob them in to the URL. I've found that to be a really kind of my favorite underhanded way of getting around the fact that I don't know off the top of my dome like what the boundaries of the Medicine Bow forest are. But if I just plop in that place ID and then search all these species, that does the work for me, and I don't have to guess. So we will do some live follow-alongs at the end. Until then, we are going to be basing seed collection event scheduling off of the work that this brings us. So we hope to have at least 1 collection per CoNPS chapter, and it can include camping, botany hike the day before, seed collecting, and ID training. These will be Friday and Saturday events. And the more that we curate, the sooner events can be put in the calendar. And it's just a really fun way to get out on the landscape and volunteer and meet other like-minded plant nerds. And I often get asked at the end of these kinds of presentations, what happens to the seeds that we collect? So I'm just going to try and head that off and say, after we collect the seeds, they get sent to an extractory or a nursery run by the U.S. Forest Service. Those seeds are grown out and increased. And that seed is what goes on to be distributed to the forestry units that need them. The genetic diversity is very important. We can't just collect once and then just increase that seed over and over and over. It needs to be replenished with new alleles and new ecoregion types continuously, just to keep things as genetically diverse and healthy as possible, right? So that's why this is such an iterative process year over year. And as I mentioned before, we can only do 20% of a population, and we do that by collecting from every 5th plant or of 20% of every plant that you see. The herbarium specimens that we collect are verified by botanists, so that we can actually verify, okay, these grasses all look very similar, but we're fairly certain that this is what this grass is. And occasionally we're wrong. Last year, one of the things that got dinged most was an erigeron species, and those can look very similar. And we don't collect in the same location 2 years in a row, so that we allow that population to renew and not be depleted. So how to make this project work best for you? please try to use this as an excuse to go camping. You're already visiting an area. Try and work it into your leisure time. If you already have a favorite campground that you know about, say, I really like the one, I love Mount Margaret near Steamboat. Tell us about it. Use it as an opportunity to learn more about keying and native plants. And this is basically Pokemon Go in real life for plants. If you want to try and get members of your family interested in native plants, this is a great way to do it. And it beats doom scrolling any day of the week. As I was making this presentation, I tried to add another slide at the end, but that did not work. It will have to go out at the end. Let me get I'm going to copy the link to the sign-up sheet and I'm going to pop it into the chat. So this is the sign-up sheet for people to go to and look at those pre-selected areas, and it will say things like, okay, this is at this trailhead, this is when it blooms, this is the plant, and you can filter to the forestry unit that you're closest to, or the plant that you're most interested in, etc. And those search codes are a tab view. Let me share this tab instead so that you actually know what I'm talking about. So here we have our list of pre-selected scouting locations. You are able to filter based on these different variables. I would really like people to consider going and scouting. And here are your search codes. So if you are really interested and want to nerd around with these taxon and place codes, and I hopefully this search format is up here. So you can just copy and paste these values into that, and you can see what is where. And here is a notes tab where people can leave notes for each other. And for me, like, okay, I went and scouted this location. This isn't a good enough area, what have you. You can also leave those notes in your iNaturalist observations themselves. So are people feeling like they would like a live walkthrough of the desktop? Would that be helpful? Or are people feeling?
I was gonna say we could do one because I know
Yes,
there are
please.
people who wanted to get this video who couldn't attend.
Okay, perfect.
So we could just do a walkthrough.
Yeah.
And then I was also gonna say I think it's important to mention why the U.S. Forest Service is kind of a closed system in terms of plant propagation. So when we are trying to plant trees on national forest land, those seeds and cones need to have been collected on national forest land to go back onto those lands, either because they are ecotypic or because there are a lot of permissions and rules in the federal government that we are unaware of. A lot of the seed collections that WRV does, some of them may be on a private ranch, and those are contributing to other open spaces. City, county, and town municipalities and also state lands have a bit more flexibility with what they're doing. For instance, we might be collecting at Laurie State Park for years to help the city of Longmont seed restoration program get kicked off because they didn't have enough native seeds available in that area. The National Forest and the grasslands is a large enough system that they can have this kind of closed loop system as well. So some of our tree plantings, we collect trees on state or private land, and a lot of our tree plantings are actually going back onto state or private land. And then one mention too is if you happen to be going out on a like a WRV Trails project, or you're a crosscut sawyer or anything like that, I think it would be great to just glance at this list, maybe mark those species as favorites, and when you're hanging out in the evening, or if you are tacking on an extra day of camping at a WRV project, often we choose projects that are accessible to people, that are on a road that we can get into. If you've just hiked 14 miles with a crosscut saw into the wilderness, that's probably not a great seed collection site. But it's a great way to kind of add more value to your time, as well, if you're driving far to go, on a WRV project or take your family hiking or something. So thanks, Melly.
Oh, yes, thank you very much. That's excellent. Let me start sharing from this tab. All right. So as we have said, we don't really need to start from within the project, but this is what the project front page looks like. You can see all of the existing observations that we've curated so far, and we hope to see this map just go gangbusters and fill in even more. So from first principles, we don't need to be in here. We hit explore. And as you'll see, it does just kind of snap to my location. So I'm going to hit X and I'm going to say Colorado and Liatris punctata. And instead of looking at this grid, that doesn't really tell me very much, I'm going to hit map. And that shows me all the places that it's been observed. If you want to, you can also hit filters and select research grade, and that will only show you the research grade observations. You can also say, I only want to see these from these months when it's probably in seed, etc. And you can clear those options as well. Update search. And here we have, let's see, that's probably not on forest lands. I see here, it's like sitting right on top of the Pawnee label. And you hit that, and then you hit the picture itself to go to the observation. And there's the plant at the landscape level, another view of it, and these the seeds that definitely looks to me like Liatris punctata. And showing, if you click on details, it will show you, okay, this is accurate to within 5 meters. It's on the Pawnee. Oop. And if you accidentally click something, you just go back and you start over. And I would say this is in fruits or seeds. And I click in projects. And these are the 2 projects that it would be applicable for. And I just click that. And then I'm done. And then you've added another observation to the list. If I wanted to do I'm just going to look for those place maps here. If I only wanted to do Boulder Ranger District, and I only wanted to search, let's say, Bootalua gracilis. That's probably something that they have in that district. And there's 5 observations in this entire ranger district, which doesn't really surprise me. This is more of a plains species. So going down here, Let's see, zooming in a bit. That looks like it's probably on the National Forest. I hit details. The accuracy is not recorded, so that's not ideal, but that's okay still. I can verify that in Onyx later, but it's dubious. It's probably within. It's possibly within. Getting less sure as I go down because it says boulder open space, so it might not be on our target area. So I'm going to back out of this because I've decided against that.
And
This looks,
Melly, to ask
yeah,
another question about location. So you shared that list of
yeah.
specific linked locations that, Medicine Bow National Forest. Would you take that link and put it into your location search?
You can copy and paste values from the list that are on the WRV training sign up, or you can just click on that list that's in the slide and
Okay.
it'll take you there. And then you would just have to add in the taxon of interest.
Okay.
So,
So
yeah,
that link loads your iNaturalist with that location boundary already, and then you would just add your species. Okay.
correct. Yeah, this is where it would bring you. It would just show you this is everything. Like this is insects, this is
Yeah.
animals, and from there you
Great.
you drill down.
Okay. And then I have one more question to link it back to the
Yeah,
mobile app. Can you show folks in the desktop app if they were using the mobile app, since you can't add to the project directly from the mobile app, unless you're making a new observation, you said to add it to your favorites in mobile.
that's right.
Can you show folks here in the desktop how to go to the favorites and add it from
Yeah,
there? I don't know if you
that's
have any favorites stored. I'm
oh yeah,
putting
I
you on the
do. I
spot.
absolutely do. Yes,
Okay,
because I do a lot of mobile scouting instead of looking at social media nowadays. So I definitely have favorites. So instead
good
of
choice.
trying to find your favorites through something kind of more intuitive, like under community or your observations or more, it's actually hiding over here underneath your icon. So if you kind of hover over your icon, and you go down to favorites and click that, it will show you your own favorites. And Alpoa alpina, I click on that observation, and we see these amazing photos of this species. And oh, isn't that just delightful? And so I need to add it to the project because I hadn't done that yet. So, and now it's done. And now it's added to the project. And we clap ourselves on the back. And we go back to the favorites and do it again because there's more to do. Such as this Carex. Nope. Such as Persia tridentata, which is one of our opportunistic species. It's on the National Forest. It is the species of interest. It is flowering. And I add it to the project. You just click in project. You don't have to type anything. It'll just show you and you add it. And there you go. Is there anything that people would like me to demonstrate from desktop?
I have a question that I'm just wondering. So when you take a photo, I've noticed on my phone, it records the lat long of the photo. But if you, so do you, is that how you get an accurate, like how do you get that information if you weren't taking a photo? I guess you would be taking a photo, but
Yeah, it does come from your, in mobile settings. So make sure that you have the geoprivacy settings set up to allow the GIS data to be part of the metadata. Most people already have it set that way.
Mhm.
Um, But as for the geo accuracy, like this accuracy, it's 21 meters. I don't actually know how they set that. I just know that you can set it to being open, private, or obscured. So if it was obscured, it might be something more like accurate to within 500 meters, something to that effect.
So
I'm imagining.
if you're not taking a photo and but you are saying that you have an observation. I guess my question is, one, do you have to take a photo? And number two, if you don't have to take a photo, is your phone keeping track of where you are when you make that observation?
So yeah, you definitely we do want at least one photograph just as a record and saying, okay, this is what we think it is. More is better, but photos are where I typically get that GIS data to come in, that metadata.
Oh,
You can get it through, like if you have Wi-Fi and or if you're using an offline app that can still detect your location, such as Gaia GPS or Onyx or one of these other mapping or Garmin, you can record that later. If you wanted to give us like the most precise, and if for whatever reason you couldn't take a photo, then we could use that instead.
okay. I
Yeah,
think I was basically overthinking it. So yeah, take a photo.
take a photo. Yeah,
Even if
have
it's
fun
not
with
of the
it.
plant, right?
That's right. Yeah, it doesn't have to be like museum quality. It doesn't have to be like amazing microscopic imaging. Um, this is basically just helping us define these populations, and the the follow-on work that we do, that the crews do. That's like where the rubber hits the road. But this, you help us build the tires. Like how could we get there without these observations? We would be relying on. We did rely on SciNet observations, which are very historical, like herbarium specimens. So if an herbarium specimen was made in like 1971, they were using that to inform where to go and scout. This is such a much more like current model of finding these locations, in my humble opinion. Um, so yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, of course. I'm glad I got to share that as well about all the miles that we've driven, and we do want to reduce um, the travel gas usage impact of um, of these scouting efforts. And so if you're already out um, and recreating, why not also do this? Is kind of my feeling about it. Um, and so I've clicked on the link in the slides for the Comanche National Forest. It's a very approximate area. It's not super accurate. You'll get to learn the data if you work with it enough, and just yeah, using the places preloaded is pretty um, efficacious. I think it's a better use of time than trying to like visually, go through and say, oh, is that on um, the pike or isn't it? If you're able to, just use this. And we are, like, as an aside, we are looking for almost all the penstemons that are not rarities. We have enough penstemon varens, however, so we are not actively looking for that. Um, so if you are a penstemon lover like I am, and you want to go and find these beauties out on the landscape and tell us about it, that's great. We want to hear it. We want to collect them and add them to the genetic diversity on the landscape.
And
Um,
while and a note about that geo privacy, if you are out there um, making observations and you do happen to find a rare plant, especially one that does happen to be kind of a hot item, potentially for horticultural digging, otherwise known as stealing plants off of public land, you can, I would encourage you to make that geoprivacy private, record that location on your own, and then if a researcher or a rare, native plant scientist reaches out to you to do surveys, you could share that location data with them. I have chosen not to document some gentians that I have found right next to the trailheads because I don't want them dug up. So that is one of the only reasons why I would say you could, turn that geolocation off when you're making an observation.
Correct.
Or geoprivacy settings.
Yes, the location sharing. I will add that that reminds me of a very cool side effect of this project is we had a member of the Southeast chapter mentioned to us that, hey, if you're going to be collecting Whipple's penstemon, there's this rarity that has an overlapping range. Oh, and by the way, I have observed it in the state, and it's not even an acker field, and it's in a logging area, and it's being affected by erosion. So we passed that information on to the Forest Service, and they're hopefully going to be doing a plant salvage effort. So I think that's a really cool, like, unintended consequence of this project is getting to do that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I've kind of wrapped up what I wanted to show people. If anyone wants to hang out and it has any requests of what I would demonstrate, or if they want to share their screen and show us the problems that they're having, we can dedicate this time to that.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording
Yes,
so it can
great.
process. So.
Yeah.